Hey, everyone. Welcome. Jen Dice here for Status Coup on this Friday. I apologize for being later than I wanted to be. I just had to do some family stuff and then get this all organized for this show, but it's going to be a really interesting show. Now, this portion is just a snippet. It's just a snippet of what is to come, because today is when we do our Rokfin Premium Members Only show. And so we just do on this day, on Rokfin days, a preview, kind of telling you what's going to come up. And I don't know if you guys if you have Hulu, if you've been paying attention to Hulu, but you might have seen some ads for this. We're going to be talking about the real story behind Hulu's new Dope Sick. So Dope Sick. I'm sure you can kind of guess what that is. Well, especially since, it's I kind of give it away in the headline, right? So welcome, guys. Once again, if you're just joining us, smash the like button, share this stream. Again, this will be a short stream because today is a Rokfin only day, but that's okay because we're going to go over some details behind the opioid crisis. And I'm sure you guys are not going to be surprised to find that there is an extraordinarily wealthy family who is behind a lot of what people are suffering from. And like we saw with big tobacco, with the lies and obfuscation and doctor saying, oh, I smoke, you should smoke, like literally prescribing tobacco, prescribing cigarettes. Well, that's exactly what we see with the opioid crisis. Purdue, the company that the Sackler family is behind, is responsible for similar tactics as big tobacco, lying to doctors, literally creating a market that didn't need to exist with something extraordinarily dangerous. So welcome, come on in, my friends. It's been an interesting week. Jordan, as you guys probably know, is on his 1-year anniversary trip. They're having a great time. So he'll be back this weekend, and then you can expect more great content to come. Definitely check out the videos that we've been posting because YouTube's our views, there's no way that these views are legitimate, first of all, but our views have just tanked. And I think if you take a look at our channel, you'll probably see why. That has nothing to do with us. Obviously, there's always room for improvement. There are definitely things we can do better. If we had an even bigger team, we could do more marketing and more XYZ, more any of the above. However, the fact that our channel is the size that it is, and we're getting 200 views on certain videos is nonsensical. So we rely on people power, but also take a minute after the Rokfin stream to just check out what we've been doing. So I've been unable to get to DC, for example, this week due to family matters. And there's a lot going on in DC. I really wish that I could have gotten there. There's been a week-long people versus fossil fuels protest daily in DC. Indigenous protesters and allies, hundreds, have been arrested for peaceful actions protesting around DC. There were arrests in front of the White House. There were arrests at a sit-in at the Indian Bureau of Affairs, which Native Americans do not want to exist. And just some really disgusting behavior by DC police and the powers that be for people who are simply trying to do things like stop Line 3, stop Enbridge. We need to save our Earth for right now, for water, for Earth, for people, and for future generations. And so Indigenous people have been protesting for many, many months at this point. It is reported that by Enbridge, that oil is now flowing as of the start of this month. But Indigenous activists and those on the ground say that there is still hope, there's still time, that Biden can still stop this. So they delivered over 1 million petition signatures to the Army Corps of Engineers. Biden was addressed at the top of that letter. And so every single day there have been protests, including today, Monday through today. And it's been incredible. And I'm grateful that they allowed us to use some of the footage of arrests, photographs of arrests and sit-ins, and just a lot of really important work being done on the ground. We've also covered strikes, including the John Deere strike, which has taken the country by storm. So much so that even mainstream media is reporting it. Can you believe it? Mainstream media is actually reporting on the John Deere strike. And on Monday, it's slated for the IATSE, the kind of behind the scenes folks in Hollywood. They're planning to strike come Monday. And in speaking with, our good friend Tina Desiree Berg, who lives in LA, who knows Hollywoodland very well, she says, production's going to have to stop. They're not going to be able to do anything without these kind of behind the scenes folks. So we here at Status Coup are definitely keeping up with everything that's going on strike wise. I have to say, and again, I spoke to Tina on the phone about this earlier today. I find it invigorating that there are so many strikes going on right now, from Kellogg, coal miners, Starbucks, Jack in the Box workers, McDonald's workers, Amazon folks are trying to unionize. There again, the IATSE strike plan for Monday. And guys, I think this is catching. This is going to catch on more and more. And people talk about a general strike. We talk about this a lot on this show, the need for a general strike. If things are truly going to change in this country, it's going to come down to the working class hitting the elites where it hurts, which is in the pocketbook. And yesterday we had, I had Ron Placone on the show. It was a fantastic show. We talked about a lot of important topics, such as those I just mentioned. We talked about his new movie. So we've been doing some, there's also Howard University, a historically Black university. It's in Washington, D.C. So at Howard University, it's a private university, and students and their parents pay a hell of a lot of money to attend there. And in some cases this year, students who thought that they had housing showed up and found out that they actually didn't. They found out maybe a week or so before school. And so some students were reportedly having to sleep in their cars, trying to figure this out last minute because their university betrayed them. And it's also the case that Howard University was doing some kind of reorganizing with the board and was kicking off slots for alumni, those who know and care about the students the most. And so that was part of the protest as well. So we have reporting and footage up from that. And we'll keep updating you. So today I want to give you a preview of today's right after this, like I'm running from here digitally to Rokfin, which is what we do once a week. We have a deal with Rokfin where they pay us a minimum amount per month, which we need because it supports our in-field reporting. And so we do an exclusive there just for premium members. So again, we have our own Status Coup membership, which is obviously our top priority. But this deal with Rokfin, it allows us to cover things and go into things that we simply can't do on YouTube at this point. We've talked about, Operation Northwoods and JFK stuff, and we've gone behind the scenes of like the Skull and Bones and the Bush family dynasty, etc. So we're able to dig in there and do some topics that we can't do here. So if it's in your means, go to rokfin.com/statuscoup and you can sign up. But let's give you a preview of what I will be covering in more depth there. And Colin, if you can pull up the LA Times Dope Sick article. So this is new. It just came out. Again, you may have seen ads about it, but there's a new show on Hulu. I started watching it. It's a fictionalized, like dramatized version of what's going on with this extraordinarily wealthy Sackler family, and they are behind Purdue. They don't advertise that. If you look on their website and their materials, you don't see Sackler family all over Purdue. But Purdue is the company that's behind making OxyContin. And as we all know, as we all look around our communities and around this country in general, there's an enormous opioid crisis. People are dying in mass. It's a huge, huge problem. I know a lot of schools now are doing like events and programs to try to teach kids and families about the dangers of opioids. But this family is behind much of what the issue is, and they continue to get away with things. Maybe you've heard about bankruptcy and Purdue, but the Sackler family remains fairly untouched. So for this section, I'm going to go through this LA Times piece talking about Dope Sick and why this has been turned into this dramatized version. So this is out of the LA Times. Hulu's low-key thrilling Dope Sick carves Sackler name deeper into wall of shame. So you can see there's an image of Michael Keaton, who plays a small town doctor who is caught up in the epidemic. And actually, there's a fantastic Netflix show called The Pharmacist. It's a documentary called The Pharmacist. I highly recommend that everybody watch that. That details a real life pharmacist getting caught up in the epidemic and actually he started refusing to prescribe or to hand out these opioids at risk to his job. So you can kind of go through that documentary if you have Netflix and see what's going on. Again, it's called The Pharmacist. So let's get back to this piece. The OxyContin epidemic, which has been going on for a couple of decades and change, is the subject of Dope Sick, a new miniseries from Hulu. It joins Alex Gibney's recent documentary, The Crime of the Century, and Patrick Radden Keefe's book, Empire of Pain. I highly recommend Patrick Keefe's book. I'm actually listening to it on audiobook, which I have to do when I'm drifting off to sleep or whatever. The amount of detail that he goes into is incredible. The amount of investigation that he's done is incredible. He's a true expert, a true journalist. And in fact, which I'll show in the Rokfin stream, has been called in to testify and answer questions in front of Congress as part of trying to hold the Sackler family accountable. So it goes on to say, and the latest in a trio of episodes of John Oliver's Last Week Tonight, which I also recommend watching John Oliver's segments on the Sackler family and the opioid crisis as well. In shining a harsh spotlight on the drugs manufacturer Purdue Pharma, the family who owns it, the Sacklers, and the Food and Drug Administration, which by omission and commission essentially colluded in allowing a dangerous, addictive narcotic to be marketed as safe and non-addictive. Developed by Danny Strong from Beth Macy's book, Dope Sick, Dealers, Doctors, and the Drug Company That Addicted America, and directed by Barry Levinson, it's both understated and obvious. Given the subject matter, there will be some frustrating, if not unpredictable outcomes, some of which are supplied by history. But there is a welcome lack of pounded tables, clenched jaws, throbbing temples, and speechifying. It's true that Rosario Dawson's composite character, Bridget Meyer, a high-ranking Drug Enforcement Administration officer committed to getting OxyContin off the street, has been fashioned with a short fuse and disregard for niceties. So they go on to kind of talk about who the actors play and how. The show moves back and forth between contrasting environments. The Appalachian mining town where Michael Keaton's Dr. Samuel Phoenix practices, the cushy, emotionally sterile world of the Sacklers, and functional government offices and courtrooms, with side trips to diners, posh restaurants, fishing spots, and an Arizona resort. Wonder if Kirsten Cinema is at that Arizona resort. That is not reality. I'm just saying that could be a place where she would show up, right? So I find this interesting about this show because while I've only seen part of it, it does do an interesting job of contrasting these different realities. So it's like it starts out with the Sackler family in their mansion, and one of the Sackler characters says, I have this idea, we're losing our patent on this other opioid, so let's make it into something different. And so we can patent it. And let's make it so that it can be used long term. And someone, sitting there in this scene says, well, how do we convince doctors to prescribe an opiate long term? They won't do that. And another third character on the screen says something like, we're going to create the market. And that's pretty close to what actually happened, as we'll get into on the Rokfin stream. And contrasting it with, the Appalachian mining town, where they show people in poor, devastated communities who really have fallen prey to taking opioids. It's an enormous issue across the country, from the very wealthy to the very poor. We here at Status Coup have covered, Kensington in Philadelphia, which is full of heroin. Well, in some of the cases, in a lot of the cases, but in cases where we spoke with people who are houseless living in Kensington, they state that their doctor prescribed them opiates. And then once that prescription ran out or whatever happened, turning to heroin becomes, part of the logical conclusion. And it's breaking apart families, it's killing people. It's really, really horrible. So it goes on to talk about Keaton's character. Then it also going down, Will Poulter plays Billy Cutler, the story's moral wild card, a produced salesman assigned to Phoenix who overcomes the doctor's doubts about oxy and opioids, and whose developing relationship seems to hold the seeds of surrogate father and son. Billy, unfortunately, is drawn to the dark side of the sales force by its material rewards. So this happens too. And this is interesting, is that medical or salespeople who go around to doctors' offices are kind of the connection point between the doctors, the patients, and Purdue and the company and prescribing this. So the salesmen and women have to do a good job of convincing doctors, like, hey, this is in your best interest. Here's what we're going to do. And there were a lot of lies in there. And the Sackler family was reportedly so involved in this, even though they say that they weren't. And we'll hear some testimony from them directly on the Rokfin stream. In some cases, one of the Sacklers would ride around with one of these salespeople and literally wanted to be that hands-on. Going down here. So Strong hits the factual main points and many minor ones. Produce hard sell disguises soft sell sales techniques. The invented medical conditions requiring larger and larger doses. The junkets designed to seduce doctors into prescribing OxyContin for more moderate rather than severe pain. A guide to how to extract the opioids from oxy for a heroin-like high. Crime rates going up and lives going down. Different varieties of rehab. Pharma-promoted pain societies. Branded OxyContin fishing hats, plush toys, and compact discs, and unbranded pain charts now familiar from hospital visits, according to Dope Sick, produced by Purdue under another name. So, the episodes are available, I believe, except for the last one. The point in showing you this, that there's this show, isn't because, again, I haven't seen the whole thing. So it's not like, hey, everybody run and watch this Hulu show. The point is that it's now getting more attention. It's getting attention in the form of documentaries, again, from John Oliver. Even Jake Tapper has been talking about this now. And in fact, as I'll show you over at Rokfin, Jake Tapper kind of punched back a little bit at the Sackler family when they tried to silence him. So that's not something you can say many times about Jake Tapper, but that's apparently what happened this time. So I think that's a good sign that, a fictionalized version of this has come out, because people will now see articles like the LA Times reporting on this, there's a slew of renewed interest in the Sackler family in the opioid crisis. And that's a good thing, because as I'm going to show you in the Rokfin segment right after this preview, something needs to be done. Not enough has been done. The Sackler family has so far escaped accountability because of their money. They are responsible for killing so many people, for the destruction of so many lives, and they simply cannot get away with it. Our system is incredibly broken. Another thing that I'm going to show you on Rokfin is Republican blockading anything happening. You'll see when they're talking about, going back and forth with the House Oversight Committee, and they'll, a Republican member will get time to speak. They'll be like, yeah, the Sacklers are bad. By the way, what about Biden's border crisis? Let's talk about that. And then they'll use up their allotted time, which is generally 5 minutes, to talk about Biden's border crisis, in their words, and not focusing on the Sacklers or the matter at hand. And that's really emblematic of our Congress in general. I see in the chat, Clyde Girl KH says Nurse Betty is also good for opioid crisis. Yes, that is, Edie Falco does such a great job in that show. It's an older one now. I hate to say that because I feel like I just watched it yesterday, but yeah, it's really good. And, I think all of us have been touched by this crisis in one way or another. Maybe you know someone who is addicted. Maybe you have been addicted. Maybe you've almost been addicted. I was prescribed, I broke my foot or fractured my foot, and I was prescribed hydrocodone. And I'm scared of taking opiates, but whenever I've been prescribed them, which has not been many times. I specifically remember for my foot, but I pay attention in my mind, like, okay, I know that this is highly addictive, even for people who, wouldn't consider themselves to have like an addictive personality or, predisposition to become addicted to things. Like it can grab you no matter what. And I found myself, so I was in like a week and a half after starting to take hydrocodone. I found myself liking the feeling of taking it. And I don't mean in the way that oh, it helped with the pain. I meant, oh, it helped me feel good. Then I immediately stopped taking it. I didn't take it again, because that is a huge danger. Oh, I took this pill and I feel good and normal and happy and content. What a wonderful feeling. Who doesn't want that, right? But that's the danger. That's the danger. And it's extraordinarily addictive and extraordinarily dangerous to take these opioids. So, yeah, oh, you said Nurse Betty. I was thinking Nurse Jackie, Clyde Girl. I don't think I've seen Nurse Betty. Anyway, so I'm going to hop over to Rokfin. This is a really important show. And there's a reason I've called this, things that I can't remember exactly how I titled it, but these are things that the Sackler family does not want you to know. So if you're already a member of Rokfin, head on over to rokfin.com/statuscoup. If you are not yet a premium member, I urge you to sign up if you have the means to do so, because you get access to our premium content as well as everybody else's premium content. Maybe you love Graham Elwood. Well, he's on there and you can get his premium episodes as well. There's a bunch of different, names that you might recognize. A good way to kind of get exposure to some other folks, all for one price. So rokfin.com/statuscoup. I'll see you over there, guys. Bye-bye.